Looking at Catherine's match. Catherine, this is her first competition experience. Congratulations, Catherine, for taking that big step and breaking the ice. One thing that most people realize when they go to a competition is it's a lot more intense than you anticipated. It's really intense. It's like the hardest roll that you'll ever do in the gym. And so there were a lot of moves that Catherine did here that were really good, some great strategic choices, a couple moments of getting caught in some scrambles, and a couple moments, a couple errors that we can correct. But I think the biggest thing is just understanding the intensity of a competition match. So let's go back to the start here. We see both athletes looking for inside position, and Catherine is doing a good job of getting some head control here. Now this is an equal position. Ideally you want to have an asymmetrical advantage on your opponent, but now both athletes have a collar tie. So you want to get some kind of advantage where you have a better grip than your partner. So her opponent Vika ends up pulling guard, and Catherine does a good job of not getting swept and keeping her base here. What she could do is free her head earlier so that her head is not controlled by her opponent. But good job of sprawling around, and this part here is getting into a really nice looking half guard. So this is the right idea of stepping over and then eventually getting a crossface or an underhook with this arm once you can clear the leg, and then flattening out a half guard. So this is a really close step into half guard. Our opponent has started to use the knee shield and then back into full guard. So Catherine is doing a good job of being disciplined about the arm positioning, not letting her opponent get control of her arms, and then does just a textbook, really great guard open. So she's able to keep her distance, legs far away, steps up, doesn't give her opponent an option to grab her legs too hard, gets a knee to the middle, and then forces pressure and opens the guard. Super good. Really, really nice half guard position. Now from here, the mistake is not keeping pressure on your opponent. When you're playing guard, you have the option of playing guard and staying seated, or you have the option of getting up. And if you're the top player, you can take away the option of getting up by applying pressure towards your partner. Now here there's no pressure on her, so Vika is going to get up and then start attacking a guillotine. So the response to this, if you already realize your partner's getting up, you don't want to give up the sweep, or obviously don't give up the neck either. So the right thing for Catherine to do in this moment would have been to stand up, circle the head in, and then go back to a standing game. But caught off guard, was pushed over, and then ended up playing bottom position here. In the scramble, almost got up here. What was missing to get up was the the right arm posting out. But in scrambles, it's hard to always be technical about what happens. Just trying to get on top as much as you can. So now Catherine's playing bottom position. In the bottom position, you're trying to keep your opponent's posture from going up. So she's doing a good job of controlling the head, trying to isolate an arm from the body, and find an opening for an attack. Here they go out of the screen. I'm just going to fast forward a bit till we see them back in the screen a little bit. So I think they went off the mat and then they got reset into the middle. Same position, closed guard. So one tool that you could use a little bit more here, Catherine, would be pulling your knees towards your head to off-balance your opponent. So this is great that you notice Vika steps up, so Catherine grabs the ankle, and that can lead to a sweep. But you also want to be off-balancing your partner as much as possible. Vika's got good position here with the arms on the biceps, which makes it harder for Catherine to use those arms to control the head or threaten an arm control, which could lead to an attack. So from here, freeing your arms would be a priority. One way to free your arms is off-balance your opponent with your knees in order to get them to post, and then you'd have a free arm. So here, Vika ends up in a scarf hold kind of pin, which is really uncomfortable. Also, not the most strong pin. So Catherine does a good job of circling around. I'd like to see this left leg scissor out. So right now it's right leg here and left leg here. I'd like them to switch so that Catherine could go belly down and start building up base. Like that. And then she gets pushed over again, so then it would be to repeat that, scissor that leg back, this leg forward, so you can get up. Like that, yeah. And then the next step is to free the head. Now it's easier said than done when your opponent has all of their weight on your head. It's not always easy to free your head, but she only has the head. So Catherine can either try to free the head and bring the head on top, or can try to put the hooks in first and then free the head, but the head does need to eventually be freed. You can't have your head caught there. Now here, as this happens, there's an opportunity to push towards the camera because Vika doesn't have any posts to stop that direction. Now it's hard to be aware of this in the moment, but if you can develop that awareness of figuring out where your opponent has posts and where they can block, you can detect the areas of weakness. So if Catherine had pushed towards the camera now, she would have got a pin. Catherine was thinking more about getting her guard back, which she ends up getting her legs back. And here's an opportunity for, as I was saying earlier, freeing the head to get the back control. So now the mission is to free the head again. Here the head is free, and now this is a wild scramble. It's hard to capitalize on this. There's no back to chest connection, so Catherine doesn't yet have control over Vika. So Vika's going to try to spin really fast, Catherine's going to try to climb really fast, and it's a race to the top. And as that happens, they roll over again and end up with Catherine on guard again. Good job of controlling the head. Here Vika's doing an excellent job of holding the biceps, so that's when you want to off balance. There's a nice idea of a hip bump sweep there. Catherine got up to do a hip bump sweep. That's good. Keep your opponent working. Okay, now here was a kind of a mix of not committing hard enough. So here Catherine thinks, okay, I'm going to get up and hip heist, or I'm going to play guard. And so she abandons the idea of playing guard, I think, and starts to think about getting up onto her knees and try to come on top. However, her opponent is higher than her, and Catherine doesn't have enough points of base to prevent her from being pushed towards the camera. So the unfortunate result is her opponent pushes her over, and Catherine doesn't have a guard anymore. So ends up getting passed. And here it was just a question of timing. Once you're in this position, your near side leg to your opponent should be touching them so that you block the passage that they could have to going to the mount. But here, her partner just jumped in before Catherine could bring that leg in. So her partner, Vika, was able to get the knee across and slide over to mount and get extra points for that. Now from here in the mount position, Vika's doing this Nogi Ezekiel, which is often not a real submission threat, but you do have to address it. And by addressing it with your arms, it pushes your arms out of position, and then the top player can capitalize on that. So Catherine's trying to find defensive hand positions, trying to work her legs into a position where she'll be able to use them to escape. So some good leg pummeling here, trying to get your feet on the inside. These arms could be in a little bit better position. So right now, these arms are being very defensive, which is good because it prevents your opponent from isolating your arms from your body. However, they're not being used in a proactive way. So I'd like to see this forearm against this hip, or even this hand against this hip, as a way to create space, give you something to frame off of, push off of, and then any movement with the legs will be more useful. But I believe this might be, maybe Vika's still, I can't see from this angle, but Catherine's opponent, Vika, might still be doing a Nogi Ezekiel, which is putting pressure on the neck. So Catherine might be trying to relieve some of that pressure with that arm. I can't tell from this angle. So there we see some really good framing from Catherine and a look at half guard, but unfortunately it was not deep enough past the knee, and her opponent's able to knee cut out and get into the side control. And it's the same side control we've seen earlier on in the match. Right now, this is not the best angle, but you see this arm is around Catherine's head, not the underhook. So Catherine technically has this underhook here. Now, one thing that Catherine's doing really well is applying this, this post on the bicep, which could prevent her opponent from cross-facing her. However, given that her opponent is not playing a side control with the underhook, where it should be a little bit lower on the body, she's really high up on the head, it's very hard to post on the arm and get up once you're in this position. Maybe they'll rotate a little bit. Oh yeah, perfect. So we see a better example of this. If Vika's body was over this part of Catherine, then posting on the bicep would make a lot more sense. Then turning towards your opponent, posting with the other hand too, and then turning into them and creating space that way. But because Vika is high up Catherine's body and grabbing the head, then it's really hard to get a good angle of pushing the arm this way, because if you do push on the bicep, your arm will be straight up in the air, and that's a frame that's easy to tip over given that angle. So the right answer from here is similar to what we saw earlier in the match. Catherine needs to turn to her right and get up onto her knees. Alternatively, another option is to walk her hips close to her partner's hips, bump their hips underneath, and then turn and get a sweep to Catherine's left. Those are the two most low-hanging fruit escapes from that position, which easier said than done because there's a lot of pressure here. So Catherine is being active with the frames, trying to find a way to relieve that pressure, which is good. And then the next step would be to walk the hips closer. And here we see the space between her opponent's hips and the ground. So walk close, and then slide the right knee underneath, or maybe even the hips. It doesn't have to be the knee. And then with that, switching and tipping your opponent the other way. So you can imagine right now their bodies are making a T. And if you close the scissors of that T, so if Catherine's body is aligned up with Vika's body, then they're much more easily rolled away from the camera. And from here, her opponent's just putting on a bunch of squeeze, and Catherine taps and gets up. Wonderful match, really great first match. So congratulations for breaking the competition ice, getting out there and doing it. Way to go, Catherine.